Discover the incredible maid who refused the millionaire CEO and transformed his life in 30 days. Emily straightened her uniform for what felt like the 100th time that morning. The crisp fabric hugged her curves, a reminder of the pride she took in her job at the luxurious hotel. She took a deep breath, the scent of polished wood and lavender cleaner filling her lungs. Her heart raced as she thought about Lily, the giggles, the bright eyes, and the way she clutched her stuffed bear. Every day, she put on this uniform fueled by unconditional love. Being a single mother was an uphill battle, and the weight of economic inequality pressed down heavily on her. But then again, resilience ran in her blood, and so did hope. One rainy Monday, Jack, a wealthy CEO with a penchant for the superficial, checked into the hotel. Dressed in perfectly tailored suits that screamed privilege, he glided through the lobby, oblivious to the world around him. Emily watched from the corner of her eye, irritation bubbling. To her, he was the embodiment of everything toxic about wealth, entitlement dripping from every pore. Days turned into weeks, and something unexpected happened. Jack began to notice Emily. There was a warmth in her smile, a light in her eyes that melted through his corporate armor. He came to appreciate the way she interacted with others, a genuine kindness that contrasted sharply with his cutthroat existence. But she stayed at arm's length, always pushing back against his offers of help. "I don't need charity," she would say firmly. "I've got my own battles to fight." But underneath it all, a connection simmered. Jack found himself drawn to the way Emily talked about Lily, her pride shining through the struggles. "You're doing incredible things," he remarked one afternoon, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. Emily rolled her eyes, brushing aside the compliment, but a small blush crept across her cheeks. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Then came the day that rocked Emily's world. Jack made a corporate decision affecting her neighborhood. Layoffs were announced at the factory where many of her friends worked. As the news spread, fear hung thick in the air. Emily felt a tightness in her chest, each beat echoing betrayal. Jack had no idea of the very real impact his choices had. Confronting him was not an option until it had to be. "You don't get to decide what's best for us without knowing us," she shouted, facing him in the hotel lobby. Jack's expression faltered. For the first time, they stood unguarded, with intensity crackling between them, revealing raw nerves through their arguments. "Your paycheck doesn't mean you know what it's like to struggle," Emily spat, her heart racing. Jack's eyes darkened in response. Just when it seemed they might peel back the layers of misunderstanding between them, a shocking twist awaited. Emily discovered that Jack was directly linked to those layoffs. Her heart shattered, leaving the fragile bond they'd begun to form in jeopardy. Would she prioritize her community, the very essence of her resilience, or allow her heart to soften toward the man who represented everything she opposed? As uncertainty loomed, the future, it seemed, might not be as bright as she had hoped. The days that followed were a blur of worry and anger. Emily woke early, her stomach a tight knot as she prepared for work. The fear in her neighborhood grew palpable. Friends lost their jobs, children cried for less food on their tables, bills piled up without relief in sight. Each day, she pushed through the hotel doors, the weight of her community's struggles pulling at her heart. Jack was still in town, lurking like a shadow where light should have been. She tried to avoid him, bitterness suffocating any hint of tenderness they'd begun to forge. How could she look at him now? Each interaction felt like betrayal, a dance on the razor's edge of conflicting emotions. On Friday evening, after another long shift, Emily sank into her bed, exhaustion crashing over her. Lily was at her grandmother's, and the silence of the apartment echoed too loudly. She stared at the ceiling, fighting back tears. What good was hope when the world kept grinding away at everyone who depended on her? The next day, Her phone buzzed, rudely shattering her solitude. A message from a friend at the factory flickered into view: emergency meeting. Show up. It hit her like a slap. They needed her voice, and this was a chance to stand up. They had to fight for their jobs. It was time to rally. She showed up, and the room was packed with anxious faces. Everyone turned to her when she stepped in, a collective recognition that made her pulse quicken. "I know we're scared," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "But if we don't fight for each other, who will? We deserve to be treated better." Encouragement seeped into the air, a fire igniting in her. By the time the meeting wrapped up, Emily's heart swelled with determination. They had a plan to confront Jack, to demand answers and justice. But tension coiled in her chest. This man had been human at least a little once, right? She knew nothing about his backstory, his pain, or his reasons. But how could she acknowledge that now? She paced around her tiny kitchen later that night, anxiety bubbling to the surface as memories of Jack's gentle moments played in her mind. He had cared for her, even if their lives clashed. But there was history to contend with, broken trust, shattered lives. How could they bridge that enormous gap? Sunday arrived, and she stood outside the hotel, her heart hammering. Jack emerged, phone at his ear, but he paused at the sight of her. She could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes morph into uncertainty. "Emily," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "Is everything okay?" The sincerity in his tone made her gut churn. "Do you even know what's happening?" she blurted, the anger bubbling over. "You're destroying lives. Do you care?" The words tumbled out like a waterfall, a mixture of hurt and frustration. Jack opened his mouth, but no words came out. Instead, he stepped forward, and for the first time, she saw something different in him: vulnerability, uncertainty, perhaps even regret. "Let me explain," he said, taking another step closer. "I didn't know," but before anything could be resolved, a commotion erupted behind them. Screaming and shouting filled the air as a group of laid-off workers marched through the hotel lobby, protesting the layoffs. Emily's heart raced. What was about to unfold couldn't be ignored. She was right at the crossroads of everything she believed in, and deep within her, the fight for her community, her daughter's future surged. Would she stand with those fighting back against a powerful billionaire on one side, or would she risk everything and unearth the truth hidden behind Jack's decisions? The answer loomed, but time was running out. One decision could change everything. Would she be able to take that step? The crowd moved like a wave, filled with urgency and desperation. Emily felt the energy shift, the collective anger building. Faces she recognized, faces contorted in protest, filled her vision. The fear of losing their livelihoods pushed them forward like a tide. "Stop! Please!" a voice shouted in the chaos. It belonged to Greg, a man whose family relied heavily on his factory job. He stood at the front of the group, arms waving, trying to make himself heard over the cacophony. "We just want to talk. We deserve to be heard." His plea cut through the noise, and a small silence fell over the throng for a moment. Emily's heart raced. Jack was watching, his body tense, eyes darting from Greg to her. It was a moment suspended in time. Should she step in? Should she raise her voice? That swirl of emotions raced through her: fear, hope, anger, and an all too urgent need for resolution. Swallowing hard, she pushed forward until she stood side by side with Greg. "We want answers," she shouted, her voice steadying with each word. "We're not just numbers. We are people. We have families." The crowd erupted again, and the sound filled the lobby, a potent reminder of their shared struggle. That's when Jack met her gaze, an expression she'd never seen before: raw, open, and challenging her. "Emily," he called, taking a hesitant step forward. "You have to understand, the decisions aren't just mine to make." His words were surprising, and for a moment, doubt crept into her anger. Could she really challenge him if he was merely a pawn, too? But once again, she thought of those faces in the crowd, those fighting for their futures, their dignity. "No!" she shouted back, emboldened by the fire of the protest. You are not just a pawn. You hold power. Your decisions affect us all. The protesters cheered, their voices uniting in support. Emily felt a surge of adrenaline as hope flickered, a light in the dark. Maybe, just maybe, if she could reach him, something would change. Jack took another breath, his brow knitted tightly. I want to help. But I need you to understand the challenges we face. It's not as simple as all of you think. His voice was earnest, a plea woven within the chaos. But before she could answer, the shouts of the workers grew louder, the crowd advancing toward the hotel management office. Create jobs. Save our jobs. They chanted, the rhythm pounding like a drum. Emily felt her heart thump in time. She understood their pain, felt it deep in her own bones. But Jack's eyes showed something perilously close to fear. Was he afraid of losing control, or was he simply afraid to care? She wavered, the moment turning critical. Are you with us or against us? She called out, pushing all her emotion out into the world. Every ounce of frustration and hope hung in her chest, a question that could shift everything. Jack stepped forward again, determination flickering across his face. I want to do what is right, Emily. But I'm caught between what I have to do and what I want to do. Make the right choice, she urged. The tension wrapped around them, two different worlds colliding right there in the lobby. And then it happened. In one swift motion, Jack took a step toward the throng of workers, raising his hands. Wait! His voice amplified through the crowd, a bridge forming between him and the desperate hearts facing him. As silence fell once more, Emily held her breath. What would he say? Would he help them or turn away? This was the precipice. One word could either build a new future or rip the community further apart. Emily's heart pounded. Was this the moment everything changed? Jack opened his mouth. What would he reveal? Would it be the truth they needed or a feeble excuse? Jack's gaze swept over the crowd, faces of hope and desperation reflecting back at him. The tension in the air felt electric, tightening like a coiled spring ready to snap. A heavy silence hung as he fought against the weight of expectation. Listen, Jack began, his voice steady yet strained. I know it sounds like I'm just another corporation in your way, but I want to share something that hasn't reached you. He paused, seeking the right words, his breath wavering slightly. I'm here to protect jobs, too. My future depends on every single one of you. Emily felt her heart sink, a mix of sympathy and frustration swelling inside her. Was that all he could offer? A reminder that he was bound by his own chains? The crowd shifted nervously, heavy brows knitting in anguish, unsure if they could trust him. It's not easy, Jack continued, his voice gathering strength as he saw the fear mirrored in their eyes. There are investors, people pulling the strings, and I can't just flip a switch. Trust me, I wish I could break free of this cycle too. Then do it! A voice shouted from the back, igniting a roar of agreement from the crowd. Together we can break those chains. Greg yelled, rallying the energy around them. Jack locked eyes with Emily, a pleading look in his gaze. I want to fight this, but I need all of you with me. We can't do this alone. I can't do this alone. That single statement resonated deeply with Emily. She remembered every sleepless night her family had endured during economic shifts. The fear of losing everything had shaped her reality. As if sensing her struggle, Jack took a small step closer, lowering his voice. I have a plan. A risky one, but it could lead to real change. You're right, Emily, we are people, not numbers. I don't want to fight against you. I want to fight alongside you. The weight of his words hung between them, a fragile promise tangled in hope. She could see the determination etched on his face, the glimpse of a man wanting to be more than just a figurehead. The crowd buzzed with mixed reactions, whispers of doubt mingling with shouts of approval. Eyes darted from Jack to Emily, each looking for a glimpse of reassurance. Will you stand with us, Jack? She asked, her voice softer yet charged with urgency. Can you truly lead us? Or is this just talk? I promise, he said, the sincerity in his tone almost palpable. I'll help us break through this. But we have to start now. We need to present a united front. As Jack's words settled into the hearts of those gathered, a new energy surged through the crowd. Hope ignited, and Emily felt it, too. The flames of possibility flickered to life. Could they really move forward? But just as momentum began to build, the sound of distant sirens echoed, slicing through the atmosphere. The reality of their situation crashed back down. "Police!" someone shouted, panic rippling through the group. "They're coming!" Emily's mind raced. They were on the brink of something significant, yet danger loomed. Would Jack stand firm? Would the workers rally together against this impending threat? "Stay together!" she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "Don't let them divide us!" As she turned to Jack, the urgency pulsing through her veins, she wondered, were they ready to take this leap together, or was the moment about to be snatched away? With the sirens drawing closer, Emily faced the crowd, determination surging through her once again. This was their fight, and it was far from over. What if this confrontation was just the beginning? The cacophony of sirens grew louder as fear rippled through the crowd. Faces turned pale, eyes widened, and conversations quickened into frenzied whispers. Jack could feel the tension in the air shift from hope to apprehension in mere moments. "Listen!" he yelled, raising his hands in a calming gesture. "We can't let them intimidate us. We know what we want." But it was easier said than done. A plume of doubt circulated among them like a dark cloud, threatening to drown out the spark of unity they had just ignited. Emily stepped forward, heart pounding. She needed to act. "Jack!" she called out, her voice cutting through the noise. "We have to decide now what we want from them. We can't just stand here." He met her eyes, the flicker of resolve igniting in his expression. "You're right. This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. If they come for us, we stand together." A small fire ignited in the crowd. People began nodding, murmurs turning into shouts, voices rising to match the blaring sirens. "Together!" Greg shouted again, rallying support. "We are more than just numbers. We are workers' families." The unexpected solidarity struck a chord. Emily felt it too, a pulse of shared determination. She had feared they were doomed to always be pawns in the game played by others. But at that moment, a flicker of revolution ignited within her. Jack stepped onto a nearby platform, raising his voice above the clamor. "They want to divide us. They want us scared. But fear is exactly what we refuse to feel right now." Amidst the fever pitch of emotions, the far-off wail of sirens became less daunting. It was an awakening. They weren't just facing the police but the very system that kept them down. "Who stands with us?" Jack called out, his passion evident as he scanned the crowd. "Us. We do!" they shouted back, fists pumping into the air. An overwhelming surge of bravery washed over them, giving Emily the strength she desperately craved. Then suddenly, chaos erupted as police officers began to force their way through the throng, batons at the ready, barking orders to disperse. Emily's heart raced as she instinctively glanced around for exit routes. "No! We can't run!" she yelled, reaching for Jack's arm. "This is our moment." He nodded, the fire of protest igniting more fiercely within him. "Stay together. They can't arrest us all." A few in the crowd darted to the edges, panic setting in. But Emily couldn't let that energy break them apart. "If we stand firm, they will see we mean business." Jack gripped her shoulder, fierce determination in his gaze. "You're right. We'll make it clear that we are a community. They can't silence us." As they all remained rooted together, the tension felt like a taut line ready to snap. The police continued their advance, but the energy of the crowd had shifted. It was no longer about fear, it was about a cause, a fight bigger than each individual. And amid the clamor, Emily felt something shift within herself. Real change was only a heartbeat away, not just for them, but for every family struggling back home. They had become more than workers, they were a movement. Suddenly, Jack raised his voice even higher. "This isn't just about jobs. This is about dignity. Will you stand with us?" "Yes," they cried back, resolute. Yet, Even as courage surged, uncertainty lingered. Would this be the moment that galvanized their cause or the moment that shattered their resolve? As the police encroached closer, Emily couldn't shake a nagging thought. What would they do if they truly united, and how far were they willing to go for each other? A sharp crack echoed. Was it a gunshot? Panic erupted anew as the crowd swayed, splitting in different directions. Emily's heart dropped. Were they really ready for whatever came next? Emily's mind raced as the crack sounded. She gripped Jack's arm tighter, fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. The crowd surged and stumbled as people pushed away from the approaching police. Hearts were pounding, breaths coming in short gasps. What would happen next? But in that moment of chaos, she saw it clearly. Faces of resolve, faces of doubt. She wanted to pull them back together, to remind them why they were standing there in the first place. No! Hold your ground! She shouted over the din, her voice a beacon amidst the fear. Jack echoed her call, stepping further into the thick of it. We have come too far to turn back now. His energy spread through those nearby. One by one, people began to filter back, reclaiming their space, finding their roots again. Emily felt a swell of hope. They were united, and deep within the turmoil, she sensed the momentum shifting. She raised her voice, yearning for everyone to hear her. This isn't just a fight for us, it's for our families, our friends, our future. No one can take that from us. The words resonated, booming back in a chorus, our future. Even as police pressed in, the crowd became a wall of solidarity. Emily felt a rush of adrenaline. She was no longer a small part of a huge machine but a driving force in a movement. The sirens faded into the background. Then, out of nowhere, a flash of light caught her eye. She turned to see a camera crew. They had come to film, and suddenly, the stakes felt higher. Their moment was becoming public. Their voices could echo beyond this street. Jack noticed the cameras too. We need to show the world what's happening here. They need to see us standing together. Together! The crowd chanted. It grew louder with each repetition, an anthem of defiance. Just then, a police officer stepped forward, baton raised. Disperse immediately or face arrest. His voice cut through the noise, a chilling reminder of the consequences that lay ahead. Emily's chest tightened. An arrest could mean more than just a night in jail. It could mean a setback, a crushing blow to the movement. But then she saw the determination in Jack's eyes, a fire she couldn't ignore. We're not going anywhere, she shouted, her voice shaking the uncertainty away. We deserve to be heard. The crowd erupted into a roar, fists in the air, voices overlapping. It was raw, fiery, and electric. The air thrummed with urgency and resolve. But even as the crowd rallied, Emily felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on her shoulders. The police were forming a line, ready for confrontation. Would they hold steady, or would fear drive them apart again? A hush fell momentarily, only broken by the quiet murmur of breaths as people awaited Jack's next words. He stepped forward again, ready to speak, but before he could, another loud crack echoed through the air. A shot fired, though this time it wasn't from the police. What was that? Someone whispered, panic flaring once again. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers of doubt creeping back in. Fear threatened to erode their unity once more. Jack's voice rose above them, commanding but tinged with concern. No matter what happens, we have to remember what brought us here today. Emily's heart raced. She could see the line of officers still advancing, and she could feel the change in the crowd. The air thickened with uncertainty. Would they really hold the line against whatever came next? As more shots rang out in the distance, a chilling question echoed in Emily's mind: what if this moment changed everything? What if their fight for dignity was met with an aftermath they couldn't control? Would they find a way to protect their strength and voices from crumbling? The next chapter of their fight was teetering on the edge of chaos. Would they withstand the challenge, or would this be the point where everything unraveled? Emily's heart thumped in her chest, drowning out everything else around her. The crack of the shot and the sudden surge of fear gripped her like a vice. She felt the heat of the moment radiate through the crowd, making the air almost suffocating. Every person was waiting, suspended in a delicate balance between fear and determination. "Stay with me," she yelled, looking into the faces surrounding her. "This is our home. We deserve to be heard." She could see the flickering resolve in their eyes. Jack turned to her, fire igniting his expression. "We won't let them take that from us." He thrust his fists high, rallying the people behind him. It felt like they were teetering on the edge of something monumental. Emily wanted to believe that. But then another crack echoed nearby, a sound that sliced through the tension. It was closer this time, and Emily's stomach dropped. It felt real, so jarring. She swallowed hard, her throat tightening as she fought back panic. "What if they turn violent?" whispered a voice nearby, quaking with the tremor of uncertainty. Others shared anxious glances, their faces twisting in doubt. "No! We hold strong!" Jack shouted above the murmurs. "This is our moment!" Some in the crowd began to chant again, louder and more defiant than before. "We are here! We are heard!" Emily felt the shift. The doubts were being pushed back, a wave of resilience crashing forward. But apprehension still hung in the air, dark and sticky. The police slowly advanced, their riot shields gleaming coldly in the afternoon sun. Emily could see the glint of authority in their eyes, and it sent a shiver down her spine. "Do they not understand we're here for justice?" Emily murmured to Jack, looking up at him with wide eyes. He placed an assuring hand on her shoulder. "They will," he promised, voice steady. "We fight for everyone who can't." More flashes of cameras captured the chaos, documentation of their struggle in real time. Emily dared to hope that the world would see them, not just as a faceless crowd, but as flesh and blood mothers, fathers, workers, students all standing together for something greater than themselves. Then a loud thud startled her. The officer with the baton had taken another step forward. "This is your last warning." His voice boomed, filled with threat. Emily felt anger bubble up inside her. This was what it boiled down to, a real choice between surrender or standing in defiance. Clenching her fists, she stepped forward beside Jack. "You can't silence us," she shouted, her voice cutting through the fear. It echoed off the buildings, reverberating in everyone's hearts. The energy shifted. What began as a spark reignited into a flame. "We are strong!" The crowd shouted back, their voices mingling like a powerful chorus. But just as hope began to settle in, another gunshot rang out, this time too close for comfort. It sent a jolt through the crowd. Bodies jerked, and a deep gasp hushed the earlier zealous cries. Moments froze again. Turning to Jack, she caught his gaze. "We can't give up, can we?" He shook his head, determination etched in his features. "This is our fight. Our story." As time stood still, one of the officers made a move, raising his baton. Emily's breath caught, the tension hanging like an unwelcome cloud. She had to speak again, to reach deep and find the strength that had fueled her so far. "Stay with me," she cried out, not just to Jack or the others, but to herself. In that instant, Emily understood that she was not only rallying for justice, she was carving out a future for herself, for every single soul standing beside her. Fear still loomed, but belief flickered brightly within her chest. "Come together!" Jack yelled. She felt the crowd tighten around them, a pulse of life that could not be silenced, despite the threat they faced. As the crowd braced for the unknown, Emily's heart raced with the weight of their collective hope. This was a defining moment, one that could shift everything. But something still lurked in the shadows, a sense that the chaos wasn't finished. What awaited them beyond the rising tide of sound? What sacrifices would they have to make to stand truly united? The next step was looming, and the stakes were higher than ever. Emily's pulse pounded in sync with the chants around her. The atmosphere was electric, crackling with a mix of fear and defiance. She clutched Jack's arm, aware that the moment was fragile, but their unity felt stronger than anything they faced. "Stay with me!" she cried again, and the words erupted from her like a battle cry. They rang out until they transformed into something that resonated deeply within each person present. More officers advanced, their riot shields forming a wall that blocked their path. The world outside seemed to shrink. All that mattered was the space they occupied, the very ground beneath their feet, the injustice that had brought them together. Suddenly, the crowd surged forward, a wave of bodies pushing against the police line. "We won't back down!" someone shouted, and the words ignited the spirit in others. Emily felt herself being pulled along, the tide sweeping her. She did not want to be swept away but rather to channel this energy into something meaningful. Then, there came a commotion at the front. A young woman, barely more than a girl, stood defiantly at the barricade, face slick with sweat and determination. She was shouting something, but Emily couldn't catch the words over the roar of the crowd. She could see the girl's breath coming in quick bursts, her chin lifted high. The sight filled Emily with a rush, a reminder of why they were all there. "Jack! We need to stand firm!" She pointed at the girl. She's leading the charge. Jack nodded vigorously, eyes shining with admiration. "Let us do this." In that moment, time seemed to stretch as they joined the girl. Emily felt the collective strength surge around her like a protective shield, invigorating her spirit. "We are not afraid," echoed through the group, buoyed by courage and the necessity of their cause. But so was fear, a quiet but perceptible tremor beneath the surface. Emily could see it in the shaking hands of those around her, in the way their eyes darted between the officers and the crowd. What would happen if the tension snapped? The baton flew, a frightening blur of movement that connected with the ground next to the girl, enough to draw startled gasps from the crowd, sending a ripple of panic through the assembled bodies. "Don't let fear stop you," the girl shouted defiantly, and her voice was like a beacon, piercing through the noise. "Fight for justice." Another voice echoed, and Emily felt a burden of determination settle over her, mixing with the hope that drove her forward. As she caught her breath, Emily finally saw it clearly. The stand they were taking was about more than just their voices. It was about their lives, their futures. The hunger for change roared wildly inside her. Then came a shattering scream from within the crowd, sharp and filled with anguish. Emily turned, heart plummeting as she saw a figure crumple to the ground, an older man who had been part of their circle. Cries broke out as people rushed to him, and everything she thought she understood was suddenly engulfed in despair. "Get back!" the officers shouted, but the crowd pressed in, a mass of bodies moving to help. Emily's chest tightened, realizing this was not just a protest anymore. It had become something more profound and dangerous. What if they fight back? What if, she whispered, her eyes wide with horror. Jack grabbed her hand, squeezing it as if to ground both of them. "We can't stop," he urged. "We have to show them that this matters." The eyes of those around her gleamed with fervor, but fear creased their brows too. Every heartbeat seemed to cry out for justice, but there was still a thick cloud of uncertainty ahead. "Do we keep going?" Emily whispered. "What price will we pay?" As they recentered their focus, the rallying force around them pulsed with life, an unbreakable heartbeat in the midst of chaos. Their moment stretched on, and the uncertainty loomed larger than the event itself. With the echoes of the crowd melding into a singular haunting chant, Emily knew there was no turning back. In that charged moment, she decided no matter the outcome, she was all in. But as she tightened her grip on Jack's hand, one question remained: would their unity withstand the storm ahead? The chaos around Emily intensified. The crowd was a sea of shifting faces, some lit with determination, while others reflected concern. As whispers of fear rippled through the throng, she felt the weight of their collective anxiety pressing down on her. "What if this is it?" she thought, her heart racing in sync with the rising chants. Yet in that chaotic world she found strength in Jack. His unwavering grip was a lifeline, a reminder that they were not alone. "Look!" someone shouted, pointing toward the fallen man. The urgency in their voice sliced through the tension like a knife. Emily's eyes darted back to him, the older man who had shared his stories and wisdom with anyone who would listen. His face was pale, and the crowd surged forward once more, a wave of compassion desperately trying to reach him. "Let us help!" someone shouted from the edge of the throng, and Emily felt the visceral pull of shared humanity swell in her chest. It was a fight not just against oppression but against the indifference of the world outside this moment. No one gets left behind, she shouted, forcing her way through the crowd alongside Jack, determined to reach him, to lift him back up. But police officers shifted their stance, pushing the crowd back with shields and commands that cut into the air like thunder. Back off. Stay back. Their authority clashed starkly against the desperation of the crowd. Emily felt the air thickening, the energy shifting from rallying cries to shouts of fear and confusion. Jack's hand tightened around hers, grounding her amidst the chaos. We have to push through. He needs us. His voice was a whisper, but the fire in his eyes urged her forward. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, they pushed against the swell of bodies, edging closer to where the older man lay. Emily could hear someone yelling for water, another screaming for a doctor, while others were forming makeshift human barriers to shield him from the advancing officers. Stand back. A voice bellowed, and the sound echoed through the branches of the trees, imbuing the atmosphere with tension. Emily's heart raced as she caught a glimpse of the police officers tightening their grip. It was like watching the remnants of hope being squashed under an iron heel. Keep going, Em, Jack urged, his voice cutting through her thoughts. Don't stop. With every ounce of strength, they pressed on, Emily pushing against the fear that threatened to swallow her whole. She felt her breath catch in her throat as the vision of the man blurred, his life now hanging by a thread in this tide of unrest. Help is coming! Someone called from the back, and a wave of relief momentarily swept through the crowd, but it was thin. Emily could feel tension creeping in once more. Would help actually arrive in time, or were they helpless? The girl at the front, still a beacon of courage, shouted above the noise. We're fighting for him. For all of us. There was something electric in her voice, something that drew the crowd in like moths to a flame. The collective chant surged again, louder this time, stronger. We are not afraid. We are here for each other. Emily felt something shift within her, a quiet resolve swirling like a storm. They were making a stand, each voice adding strength to the cause. In her heart, she felt a melding of sorrow and fierce love for everyone fighting next to her. This was about unity, about humanity. But the police began to push back harder, determination gleaming in their eyes as they advanced. Would their unity hold in this fierce storm? In that moment, Emily locked eyes with Jack. They both knew they had to make a choice. Should they keep fighting for the man on the ground or retreat into safety? A choice that weighed heavily on their hearts. Emily, what do we do? Jack breathed, urgency painted across his face. As they stood on the edge of a decision that could change everything, the question lingered in the air. Would they stay, risking everything for the chance of justice, or would they step back, maintaining their own safety at the cost of their convictions? Emily's heart raced, the weight of Jack's question hanging in the air like a tightrope. One step could swing them towards safety or plunge them deeper into the fight. She glanced around, absorbing the faces of those beside her, the anguish and determination that filled the crowd, the man lying on the ground in desperate need of assistance. They weren't just fighting for justice, they were standing for one another, for the families intertwined in this struggle. No, she finally said, her voice steady and clear. We stand with him. He needs us. Jack, his expression torn between concern and admiration, nodded, their hands still tightly clasped. The fighting spirit surged within Emily as she shouted back at the group, We are not here to back down. We are here to save lives. The crowd roared in response, a unified chorus that echoed through the chaotic atmosphere. It was exhilarating, the energy of people coming together to fight for something they believed in. Every worry she had transformed into fuel, propelling her heart forward into the mass of bodies. Just as she started to step toward the fallen man, she felt Jack light a fire inside her. Together, he yelled, lifting their joined hands high into the air. We will protect each other. We will fight for everyone. The chant rose, each voice melding with hers in a mighty symphony of defiance. We will fight for everyone. The air itself thrummed with their collective determination, transforming fear into a powerful wave of solidarity. The officers continued to advance, but for the first time, the presumption of power began to waver against their uprising. Emily felt brave knowing they weren't standing alone. "Everyone, push back!" she shouted, strong and confident. With a sudden surge, the crowd pressed forward, hearts alight with a purpose that transcended fear. They formed a human chain around the older man, creating a barrier against the encroaching officers. "Help is on the way!" someone yelled from the back, and hope fluttered through the air like bright confetti. Emily knelt beside the older man as soon as they reached him. She could see fear in his eyes, but she leaned closer, looking straight into them. "You're not alone, we're here for you." Jack crouched next to her, securing a makeshift pillow beneath the man's head. "Help is coming, just keep breathing." His presence eased the tension around them, rooting them into a shared mission. The world outside blurred, everything else faded, just the three of them remained for those intense, crucial moments. The police were still there, tension thick in the air. With each step, they closed in, trying to break apart their makeshift barricade. But a wave of movement surged from the crowd, united by the purpose they had forged. The chants rose higher, echoing off the walls of the buildings surrounding them, amplifying the strength they had found in one another. "Don't let them break us!" someone shouted, and Emily could feel the blood rush through her veins, an electric realization rising above the chaos. Their fight was more than just for the fallen man. It rippled across the community, recalibrating the balance of power itself. The police finally hesitated, faltering at the sight of their raw determination. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the fear. "We're live!" shouted a reporter, her camera trained on the scene, a raw confrontation fueled by hope and the fight for justice. Emily looked at Jack, eyes bright with conviction, and he nodded, understanding what this moment could mean. "Everyone see this!" she shouted, her heart racing. "The world needs to see what it looks like when we stand together." As if in response, a wave of quiet determination washed over the crowd. They knew they were being watched, but they didn't care. They stood firm in their shared purpose. Minutes felt like hours, hope and despair dancing delicately around them. Just when it seemed like they had reached the edge of possibility, sirens wailed in the background, the sound of sirens signaling help finally arriving. Paramedics emerged, and with them came a rush of relief. "Let them through! Move back!" the paramedics called out, pushing forward toward the older man, and the crowd instinctively parted, uncertainty shifting back to hope as they made room. As help surrounded the fallen man, the crowd began to cheer, voices blending into a triumphant murmur of resilience. Emily felt her heart swell as she turned to see Jack, whose face lit up with pride and determination. They had faced despair and fought it together, living proof that they were stronger than fear. With the paramedics now tending to him, the crowd continued to rally, proudly chanting. Emily caught a glimpse of the media capturing the moment, their story, this fight, all being broadcasted to the world. Jack turned to her, his expression mirroring her own sense of relief. "We did it," he whispered, and for the first time, he seemed like a different man, one willing to transform not just himself but also his company. "Yes," Emily replied, tears forming in her eyes. "We really did it." As the cacophony of voices continued around them, she was struck by the certainty that they had become a movement, transforming the trembling threads of unrest into something tangible, hope. In that moment of triumph, Emily realized that together they had created a ripple that could ignite profound change. This day would mark the beginning of something powerful, a fight worth continuing, and she was proud to stand amongst all who had risked their safety, daring to dream of a better tomorrow. As the sun peeked through the clouds, illuminating their path, she could almost see the shaping of a new world, a place grounded in compassion, collaboration, and hope. And this was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to catch the next chapter of their incredible journey. This is the moment to show your support for these brave voices. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this inspiring story. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Every like, comment, and share helps make our community even stronger.